The chase is still on in this F1 24 career mode as we come to the final 2 episodes of Season 3. The 2026 season is nearly over, and this is part number 55 today for the Qatar Grand Prix. But if you guys did miss the previous one at the Portuguese GP, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, as for once, George Russell actually did us a favour and defended Leclerc adequately, in my opinion. We tried to fend off Max Verstappen, but he was supremely quick on the soft competitive tyre. But in the context of how far down Leclerc was, getting a P4 off the podium was still a pretty great result for us, as we did close the gap significantly to the championship leader in the Ferrari. There's still a pretty big job to do, though, with only 2 Grand Prix left, 1 sprint, of course, in this episode. And a lot of you were actually very rightly pointing out that, you know, mathematically, it's actually still a 4-way championship fight, because Verstappen's only 5 points behind me. Then Norris is a further, 6 points there. So you can genuinely call this a 4-way title fight now. Maybe more realistically, a 3-way fight, because Lando is going to have to basically win every single race, including the sprint, I think, to really come back and make one. But you never know. You never know. We have seen little periods of dominance from Ferrari, from us earlier in the season, where we were so consistent. So who knows? It could well end like that. We'll see. I mean, the R&D chart has also had a bit of change. I was very surprised at seeing this, but it seems like everyone got an engine upgrade from their manufacturer supplier. So everyone has had a small upgrade. But then if you look closer, some other teams have actually had a higher level of upgrading. Toyota, High-Tech, Red Bull, they've all had a slightly higher rate of upgrading. The line is sloping higher. So I think they have genuinely had a different car upgrade on top of the you know, across the board, everyone's clearly got a late season engine update. So Red Bull at the top end with a significant upgrade. So are they, you know, they've been working towards getting back to their pace they had at the start of the season. Verstappen's looking better, 2 podiums in a row. Could this be the return of that frightening looking Red Bull pace from the start of the season before they kind of lost their way? And then High-Tech and Toyota really pushing hard to maximize their results with the last 2 races remaining. Things could get quite juicy. You know, I've been looking ahead at Leclerc. Maybe we need to be looking back at Verstappen as well.
It's all about flow and pace today, qualifying in Qatar. A high-speed test that will set the grid for tomorrow's race. So welcome along.
Well, very much like in real life, and as we've seen before in sprint races in this career series, this is going to be, well, not a nice preview, but it's going to be a preview of the full Grand Prix to come. So this will give us an inkling if we are in for a world of pain, or we can do something maybe, because Qatar, obviously a track notorious for high temperatures, really taxing on the tyres, and that's the big worry for me coming into this race, because we know this Mercedes has been an absolute diva when it comes to the tyres. Over 1 lap, this car has some really good pace. I actually think this is one of the best qualifying cars we've had on the game compared to my McLaren at times in Season 1 and Season 2. But in the race, my God, this car has been an absolute dog sometimes when the tyre wear comes in, the tyre temps come in. So we are on the sprint pole. Verstappen second, Leclerc third, Lando fourth. Very nicely, the top 4 in the championship are the top 4, you know, in different order. So it seems like the pressure and the focus is really going to ramp up on us 4 in this championship fight, because we are the 4 that are consistently up here, and now going to these final 2 race weekends, we are all delivering. It's just about who can make that small difference to get the P1 rather than P2, 3 or 4. Obviously here in the sprint, the differences between those positions aren't as great as the full Grand Prix, but I feel like every point is going to count, especially after the races we've had at Portimao, Sao Paulo. I think every point is crucial as we go to 5 red lights for this sprint race here in Qatar on this Saturday. We get a good getaway ahead of Verstappen. Lando Norris has had an electric start, it would seem. Look at the top left. The McLaren is up to second briefly. Verstappen comes back at him. It's 3 wide between Verstappen, Leclerc and Norris behind as we have a little bit of a rear-end moment, but we've had a good launch off that sprint pole to lead the way as the sun absolutely blinds us into that left-hander, and Verstappen is absolutely cooking. That Red Bull looks unreal on the traction. That is worrying as he goes past us with ease. I didn't want to turn into aggressively because I just knew he was going to get the elbow out, you know, as we've seen now very aptly recently in real life, here in the game as well. Verstappen's AI is not afraid to make contact with you and run you off the road. As we now set the fastest lap of the sprint so far, closing to the Dutchman DRS open, and we now have an opening to maybe retake the lead of this sprint. We try and take Verstappen wide, but he commits off circuit even. He's still got his foot on the throttle pedal. We're on the outside, but Verstappen has the better line and just clearly the better car, because every corner exit he's there. And this is reminding me of how the Red Bull looked at the start of the season. Red Bull had this same insane acceleration at the start of the season, and there was just no counter to it as we're trying every corner, taking the fight to Max side by side, diving it, going so late on the brakes, making a bit of contact with him on the sideboard, but he keeps on fighting back. And now we've invited pressure from Leclerc because we went wide and the Ferraris tried to be opportunistic. We try and defend, but we go deep. We lock up on the front left, and now through goes Lando Norris. It's a double overtake for our fellow compatriot in the McLaren. He's up to second. Leclerc on the outside. This car is falling apart in this race. Only 5 laps in. We're not even on heavy fuel. This car feels awful on the medium tyres. I think they're already jotting down a mental note. Just get off the mediums or don't even use them. If I could just do a whole race on hards around here with this Mercedes car, I would. But we're not allowed to because of the rules as we try and absolutely send it on our main championship focus for now. The Ferrari on the inside at the last corner. It's now a drag race, but it's a 3-way drag race as the Red Bull of Lewis Hamilton comes through. 3 abreast, we're in the middle. Ferrari, Red Bull Ford either side of us, and all of us are now struggling for a little bit of tyre grip as Lewis snaps on the rear end, and we manage to find a way through to maintain third, but Verstappen's gone, and Lando's gone. It's GG's. The max position we're going to get then today is P3, but you get the sense that Leclerc really fancies getting that last top 3 spot. He overtakes us, we lock up. Hamilton's on the inside. Alonso's... Oh, it's not even Hamilton on the inside. That was Alonso on the inside. Hamilton was on my outside, and we only just barely stay ahead of the Aston Martin, and... Lap 10, last lap of the sprint, Leclerc's pulled away. Where is the pace, man? This might be one of the worst near maxed out cars I have ever driven in career mode since they brought in R&D. Ridiculous. We lose the back end. This car has no semblance of grip when the tyres overheat. And also, you may have noticed in this sprint, we've also had very little battery. It's been very tough to actually gain back ERS. And that was one of the other major factors why we just fell away from P3 down to P5. Just no battery to defend. A horrid day. Verstappen wins the sprint. Lando second. Leclerc. Every one of my rivals in the championship mathematically beats me in the sprint. Alonso, he's not even in the fight. He's beaten me. He's P4. And we have to finish in P5. We've got a problem. We've got a serious problem here because this car is ass. This car, no wonder we're out of the Constructors fight, by the way. I said this last episode. We're done. We're not in the Constructors fight. I'm not even thinking about that anymore. We're done. We may actually well finish P4 in the Constructors Championship by the end of the season if McLaren pull up their socks. Ferrari and Red Bull are definitely already gone. Ferrari, I think, are nailed on to actually quite amazingly win their first Constructors Championship in absolute ages. I think they're that good, you know... But for the Drivers' Championship, we gain good points. Good points in Portimao. And we've just lost a couple now. We're back to 9 points the gap to Leclerc. You know, let's say if we were to win the race, the full Grand Prix, Leclerc came second, there would still be a job to do in the final race. And the problem is, based off that sprint, Verstappen and Lando look pretty good. The McLaren looks decent enough, and the Red Bull looks ungodly quick. Especially around here. I don't know whether it's just the upgrade or it's this circuit specifically, but Verstappen and that Red Bull looked insane. And as we go into the full qualifying for the main race, with the, floodlights out, the sun's fully down, so track conditions a little bit different. Right now, on our first flying lap, we're down in P15, Russell P16. Don't tell me that even when the temperatures are plummeting, this car loses performance now over one lap. As we go to the line, we thankfully gain 0.8 of a second on the second flyer. It only gets us P5 though, but to my shock, that's actually a great quali versus all my rivals. We've beaten everyone. Verstappen P7, Lando P9, Leclerc P11. What's happened? It's a crazy, bonkers full qualifying for the main Grand Prix. Sainz P1, Hamilton P2, but Toyota of Ricciardo in third place, Audi with Zhou Guan Yu in P4. What on earth is going on in this session? But this is crazy. Russell just going back to doing nothing, P16. You know what? The fact Russell's down in P16, that's your biggest indication of how actually trash this car is and how good of a job I am doing to drag it up. At the same time, there are wild differences between teammates we've seen, in this game in general. Even here, Leclerc in the championship fight, down in P11, the same car, Carlos Sainz, up on pole position. Leclerc is down by 1.4 seconds to his teammate. So, yeah, these qualifyings have been actually throwing up some crazy results. It's exciting. It's also very bizarre how, you can have, like, over 1 second between teammates like that, even in the Ferrari, in the Red Bull, for example. So it's going to be a bit of a big unknown how the race eventually shakes out at the end. But let's go to the grid.
Welcome back to Qatar at the Lusail International Circuit. There's a long history of two-wheeled motorsport action here, but in 2021, Lewis Hamilton won out as part of an epic battle that year with Max Verstappen. But who will win out tonight? We're back here in Lusail for a track that's 3.34 miles long. There are 16 turns around its unique three-pronged shape and just a single DRS zone out of turn 16. It's fast and it's flowing, and there's a good overtaking opportunity with DRS down the long straight and into turn 1. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. An immense lap from Carlos Sainz yesterday puts him in pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Joe, a Mercedes, Tsunoda, Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Norris, Perez, Leclerc, Hülkenberg, Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Sargent, Russell, Behrman, Albon, Ocon, Bottas, and Daniel Ricciardo fills the last spot on the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. Well, it's been a long time since I last worked with you. Good to see you again today. Anthony Davidson. Let's look at their season, and particularly against their teammate. Fair to say they've got the better of them more often than not. Now, we had great fun watching them win last time out. What a great victory it was. But can they carry that into today's race?
It's the important one, isn't it, Crofty? You've done it once. Can you do it again? But, if you start believing in yourself and the confidence starts to build, that inner confidence is what you need. And you can carry that through to future races, including this one, and you set that ball rolling. That's the critical thing that they're looking for here. And I believe if you've got that first race win or a win at any stage, it can start to roll with you in a good way.
We're in a really good position, actually, having all our rivals behind us, but something tells me we're going to have to really work at a clever strategy to make sure that our tyres just don't fall away to the point where I'm left with nothing in the sprint. Also, by the way, in the sprint, there was also the problem of I had no battery, so we need to watch out for that in the Grand Prix as well. I need to make sure we save enough battery as well as tyres. That's the job today. Strategy-wise, you can see we are starting on the horrendous mediums, but the plan is to come off them as early as lap 8, get onto the hard tyres, and then go for a second stop at the end for another set of mediums, but again, only for a maximum of 9 laps to really maximize the pace before the tyre wear kicks in. You can see some interesting tyre choices from the two Red Bull Fords ahead and behind, both on the hard compound. So differing strategies. This is going to go all the way to the end to see where it kind of peters out, whether some people try a one-stop. I, for one, think the quickest way will be a two-stop for most people today, but let's see. But this is the second last Grand Prix of this season. It is crunch time, and it's go time to set up the finale as we go to 5 red lights for the Qatar GP. Lights out, and we're on the way to slow one for the pole sitter. Sainz cuts across to block Hamilton. Hamilton slow on the hards. There's a gap open there on the inside of Zhou Guanyu. We get the elbows out. We're going to have to try and fight for this position because Hamilton is there. He goes for the undercut. We go far too deep. He's actually done a great switchback on us, but he's on the hards. It's crucial that we stay ahead of him because he may be slow initially here as his tyres grip up, and we do get up into second place. It's the most ideal start we could have got. We're ahead of Lewis, we're ahead of Zhou Guanyu, who could be another bottleneck. He's already down to P5 as we go on to lap 2, and Yuki Tsunoda has been climbing the positions. He's up to P4 in the Toyota. By the way, you may have noticed Ricciardo nowhere to be seen. He unfortunately had a grid penalty. So after all of that, great qualifying from Rick Bobby. He was down at the back of the grid, but Toyota still flying the flag in the top 3 because Tsunoda climbs up to 3rd. Could it be Sainz and Tsunoda once again in the top 3 positions as they go from Portimao to here and carry over the consistency? It's almost like the sprint race didn't happen because Leclerc is down in P11, Lando and Verstappen P7 and 6. What is going on in this Grand Prix as Hamilton retakes Tsunoda? Verstappen looking to get Zhou Guanyu on lap 6 as obviously as we go on through these laps, the hards will eventually become the better race tyre, and maybe that's what we're seeing now because Hamilton and Verstappen overtake their main obstacles respectively on track, both on mediums, Tsunoda and Zhou Guanyu. So maybe this is the biggest indication that now already Red Bull's hard tyres are the better race tyre, and maybe they've just been too smart for us. They've now clearly got a very good car again, and they're really on it with the strategy plays. But for me, right now, focusing on overtaking Carlos Sainz. He gave us a bit of a squeeze. We give him one back as we get into P1. It's the wrong Ferrari at the moment, and that's a good thing for me. But as we try and pull away from Sainz, we have broken DRS, but the gap hasn't climbed any more than 1.4, and in fact, it's going to start coming down soon. So I actually decide to pit in on this lap, although I was so confused where the pit entry was. The fact that we didn't do Qatar in Season 2, I think. So I think the last time we did... So legit, I think the last time we did Qatar on this game was Season 1. And I forgot they redid the pit entry, and it was like it is in real life where it just cuts in very, very quickly. So yeah, that was a little bit embarrassing as we just drive on the runoff there. So maybe lost... maybe half a second, I can't lie, just slowing up a little bit, trying to find the pit entry, but it's fine. We're now on for an early stop, onto hards, and looking to get an undercut going. An undercut we will do, because we pass Tsunoda and Sainz, who now pit in on lap 10, and we are we're going to be a good 3 seconds ahead of Sainz, the man we are fighting for P1. But look at this now, with others also making their first pit stop. Leclerc all of a sudden is up to P4. He's only 3 seconds off Verstappen. So even though he was previously down in P11, it looked like he was completely out of the points. In reality, he's only 3 seconds down the road from Verstappen, who was in a top 5 position. So Leclerc has actually quietly recovered in this race. He's going long on his mediums, so is Lando Norris. And then obviously the two Red Bulls, they're going even longer on the hard compound, you would think. So I have a suspicion already, because they're going so much further, a lot further than you would if you're doing a two-stop. I have a almost bad feeling. I think all 3 of my championship rivals are doing a one-stop today. Verstappen comes in on lap 14. Leclerc goes further than Verstappen on mediums. Crazy. Leclerc goes to lap 15 on his medium. So does Lando Norris. They both went longer than Verstappen on hards. Yeah, which is very, very bizarre to me. So now we're up to P2. We're overtaking Hulkenberg, who's still yet to pit. We've got Sonoda and Sainz behind me, so, you know, they're obviously still in tandem with me, but we've got a good undercut going on them of now 5 seconds the gap to Sainz, but we're not focusing on them. We're focusing on Hamilton in P4, Verstappen P5, and in fact, these two Red Bull Fords are hounding Sainz. So having gone further into the race, these two Red Bulls, they might be going to the end, and they're already overtaking Sainz, who is, I think, making the stop as Verstappen. Look at him go. Not only one, but maybe two overtakes as Lewis Hamilton overtakes Sainz, but Verstappen tries to get the double pass on his teammate and the Ferrari. Doesn't quite pull it off, but he's up to P4. This is worryingly good for Verstappen and Red Bull. They really, honestly look as good as they did at the start of the season. And maybe even more than that, you know, in a very worrying way, as Lando Norris is fighting Behrman for P9, and that is Leclerc fighting Bottas for P11. So they're making their way through traffic, whereas the Red Bulls are in clean air, but it won't matter. It won't matter for Lewis Hamilton. He goes slow, and that's going to be another free position for Verstappen, unfortunately. It's another twist in the championship. It's another gift for the Dutchman, and Hamilton has to just watch the wall as his car parks up on lap 18, and later on that lap, Sonoda is in for his second stop. Sainz has already been overtaken, so now all of a sudden, Verstappen is already up to P2, and I'm still yet to pit, you know, and I think he's going to the end, and my time to come in for the second stop is now upon us. The tyre wear is creeping up. You may be looking at that thinking, oh, I reckon you can maybe go to the end. No, I just can't. I just can't. Go back and watch previous races from this season. I have now learned that in this situation, I think we have to pit. This Mercedes just eats his tyres. If we were in a different car, I would have definitely tried it to the end. Like, if I was in my McLaren of Season 2, I would have absolutely tried to have just defended Verstappen and go to the end. Of course, we tried to do that in Sao Paulo, and it came back to bite us on those inters. So we're playing, you know, we just got to play to the car, you know. It's one of those things where I want to try and, you know, be very clever, try and be the hero of this race. We tried to do that in Sao Paulo, and it blew back in our face. I admit that. We obviously limited the damage by, you know, letting those cars by, you know, only Leclerc getting P4, and then we came back at Portimao, got a load of points on Leclerc. This race, I tried so hard, but at that point, lap 20, when I saw Verstappen behind me and I knew we had to come in again, it was a bit deflating knowing that this is where the car is. This car is awful. Like I said, it's one of the worst maxed out cars I've ever driven in any career mode on previous F1 games and in this one. It really is a diva, you know. We started the season, it was looking all right. Then there was some little inklings of this car being a bit, you know, hot and cold. And now fully just, it's such a dog in the races. It has no race pace unless it's on fresh tyres, as it is now when we're cutting our way through traffic of Hulkenberg previously. Piastri just then. We're going to make a lovely little dive coming up on Daniel Ricciardo as we try and send him right, and we go to the left and we get up into P4. The job is now trying to close the gap. 9 seconds the gap, 7 seconds the gap now to Leclerc. You know, he was the championship leader going into this Grand Prix. Lando Norris second place. Verstappen P1 though. I have a bad feeling that I'm trying to do some quick maths. I reckon Verstappen actually, in some unreal from the back post sort of way, Verstappen might just come out of this full Grand Prix leading the bloody championship. I cannot believe it. Oh, go back, cast your minds back to previous episodes in the middle of this season. Remember how bad Red Bull were. They were getting knocked out, you know, in the bottom 5 consistently. Verstappen was getting held up in traffic, only scoring 8th, 9th place at the maximum for a couple of races. And now all of a sudden, his dominance and his speed has brought him back into this fight, back into the lead of the title maybe, because as we overtake Leclerc, which should be satisfying, it is satisfying to re-overtake Leclerc, knowing that the 2 stops worked here versus the Ferrari. The problem is, outside of my fight with Leclerc, Lando's quicker than me. Verstappen's quicker than me. I tried to catch this McLaren. I just couldn't, which is also why I know McLaren will probably overtake us for third place in the Constructors. It's going to be P4 in the Constructors for the Silver Arrows, but I couldn't care less. We're going to leave this team, and honestly, I can't wait to leave the team because they've been horrendous this season. Verstappen is going to waltz to a dominant 16-second nearly win here in Qatar. This is worrisome. Is he about to bulldoze the end of this season as we go to the final race in Abu Dhabi? Verstappen wins it. Lando P2 in the McLaren. We're chasing him down. We're trying, but I have no battery at the very end of this race. We're literally going to be on 0% battery. So we just didn't have enough to get that second place. We do get the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. So we gain 3 points plus 1 on Leclerc. So we gain 4 points on Leclerc, which I would have been really happy about. But the problem is Verstappen has just gained a whole lot more on both me and Charles Leclerc.
The checkered flag is out. We're going to be hearing that Dutch national anthem again because it's victory for Max Verstappen.
And it's always good, Crofty, to get that momentum on your side, and it's really good for your confidence as well. The more confident you are, the further that can take you.
33 points overall in the bag in this sprint compared to my 20, Leclerc's 18, and that is enough for Verstappen to end up being in the lead of this entire championship going into the final race in Abu Dhabi. 3 points ahead of Leclerc. And he's 8 points ahead of me. I'm 5 points back from just P2, from Charles. We were focusing on Charles this whole time. And Verstappen just walked on through 8 points ahead. That is a huge gap to try and get in one race. If you have enjoyed it, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Who do you think is going to take it in Abu Dhabi? I will see you next time for a very juicy and very pressurized three-way title fight. Red Bull Ford v Ferrari v a dog of a Mercedes that's trying its best. I'll see you next time. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.